Alright, welcome to Lab 9. This one is all about recursion. So definitely go and get that starter code. I give you 3 files, just a bunch of recursive functions that I would like you to implement. Okay, so the first one is palindromes. So if you don't know what a palindrome is, it's just any string that reads the same forwards and backwards. So like ABBA, forwards is ABA, backwards it's also ABA. Same with AA, forwards, AA, backwards, and then race car is like the standard example. If you read it forwards, it's race car, and also if you read it backwards, it's also race car. So that's what it means to be a palindrome. And for this lab, we're going to be a bit more loose with our definition, so we'll also consider anything with spaces and capitals that might otherwise not look like a palindrome, like this string right here, A space B, a bunch of spaces, and a capital A. We're going to say that that is also a palindrome. So you're going to have to pre-process your strings, okay? So that's a palindrome, and then also race car with some capitals and spaces. That's still a palindrome. So I want you to disregard spaces and capitals when you're computing this. So yeah, the first thing that you're going to implement is your palindrome checking function. It's declared in recursive funcs.h is palindrome. You're giving it a string, and so you'll go and implement that in recursive funcs.cpp. This one has two functions that you're going to go and implement. Okay, so here's what I want you to do here. What I want you to do is first implement what's called a helper function. Just the normal original is palindrome. I want you to clean up the string, like get rid of the capitals, get rid of the spaces, and get it nice so that you can then call a recursive version of the function. This is a second, what's called a helper function. I want you to implement this, is palindrome recursive. Okay? That's this one right here. That's the one that will actually have the recursive solution to the palindrome checking problem. So you're going to pre-process the original string in the isPalindrome function, and then you're going to give the rest of the work off to isPalindrome recursive that runs on your pre-processed string that can actually do the real recursive algorithm. Okay, so that's how I want you to do that, and definitely read the comments and these words for more information about that. But once you give a string to isPalindrome recursive, it should look like this. Like it's got no spaces, it's got no capitals, and then you need to go off and recursively solve the problem. So you need to find a smaller palindrome checking problem inside of every string. So can you find a smaller palindrome checking problem inside of this one? So race car, it's a palindrome. Why? Well, maybe because those R's at the end correspond, and then, oh, everything but those R's is also a palindrome on the inside. Do you see that? So that is kind of the strategy for the recursive case. Ask me about it on Discord or in office hours if you're still confused. And then for the base case, there's actually 2. There will be more than one base case. There's at least 2, I think, for palindrome checking. And to figure out which ones those are, ask the question, like, what strings do I immediately know whether they're a palindrome without having to make a recursive call to check a smaller version of the string? Like, when do I know immediately that a string is a palindrome, that it has, that it reads the same forwards and backwards without having to even look through it? So think about that. And so that's the palindrome checking problem. And then the rest, I have 2 other problems for you to solve. I want you to do the next one, sum digits. This one has this function. What I want you to do is take a number n and sum together all the digits of that number. So like if you call it with 123, you should give back 6 because you're going to sum the 1 plus the 2 plus the 3. You need to extract every digit kind of recursively. So that's the way that one's going to work. That's sum digits. And let me show you the way that this is recursive. Okay? So it's going to take a non-negative number, by the way. So for example, if you're given 1,234, the sum of all those digits is 10, because 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 is 10. And here's the recursive case. So here is your original problem on 1,234. Here's the answer that you need to give back, and here's a smaller problem. How can you compute 123 based on 1,234? And how can you add that 4 at the end? How do you get the 4 out too? So think about that. I think I've shown you that before as well. So that is the recursive sum digits problem. And then finally, for the last problem, I want you to take a C string, kind of like how I was doing in class. And I want you to calculate string length. So this is your own version of strlen. Okay, so you're given a C string, and you should give back the number of characters in that string, not including the null terminator character. So the length of an empty string is 0, okay, even though it contains that null terminator character. And so your job is to like find a smaller string to count the characters of from S. So remember how those C strings are stored. So go back to the lecture for that. Okay, so for example, to solve the problem on the string hello, you need to give back 5. Well, the length of the string hello is 1 plus the length of the string elo, right, without that first character. So how can you use that to solve the problem recursively? That's your recursive case. Just chop off that first character. You know that counts as 1 character, and then you need to find the length of the smaller string. Okay, so that's your string length problem, and this is for C strings. All right, so after that, after you got everything working, go and test them, because I've made you a test recursive funcs test file. You don't have to write any of your own tests. I've made a bunch for you already. Okay, so get those passing, and that is your lab. So lots of practice with recursion. Please yell at me if you have any questions about any of that. And the only thing that you're changing is recursivefuncs.cpp. So that's the one file that you'll be turning in for this lab. Okay, so that is lab 9. 3 different recursive problems. So good luck with that, and ask me lots of questions. I'll see you next week.